I'd like to introduce Orlo Stitt. I personally have known Orlo for a long time, but today we're going to talk about Icehouse roofs, which he is very much a advocate for and has products along those lines, which he'll explain. So I don't need to go into that part. But Orlo has, to give you a little bit about his background, he's got a Bachelor of Science from Iowa State University, an MBA from the University of Iowa. He's an NAHB Green Certified Green Professional, a Certified Home Energy Rater by ResNet, Residential Energy Services Network, except he's inactive now, and a past member of the Board of Directors for ResNet. And I'm going to reach three of his accomplishments, and then we'll let Orlo take over. But he built his first passive solar home in 1971 in Canada in a subdivision he developed. And I'll say also, too, right now, Orlo's in a subdivision that he's developed that has, I think he said, 29 lots that mostly already are built on. There's a few left, and he'll probably talk about that as well, that the subdivision is laid out to maximize solar. He founded Stitt Energy Systems in 1978. He's the chairman of Stitt Group now, and there's 4 divisions, which I'm going to let Orlo explain what they are, so I won't go into that, but he's a past president of the Northwest Arkansas Home Builders Association. He's taught seminars. I've been to a few of Orlo's seminars. He's a very good speaker. And I see here his subdivision is called South Sun Estates near Beaver Lake in Rogers, Arkansas, which is also Rogers, Arkansas is the headquarters for Stitt's group. And he's got a book out called Holistically Green Homes. I believe it's in his 3rd edition now, and he'll discuss that and say if you're interested in getting one of those books, how to get it. His home he lives in now is a net zero plus energy efficient home in the South Sun Estates, and he lives with his wife, Mary. He's got 18 Energy Value Housing Awards, which is awards they used to give out at the National Association of Home Builders annual conference. 2 People's Choice Awards, that means he was his peers, and he was voted to be one of the best builders. Energy Value Builder of the Year in 1999. And he's got a number of awards, including Honorary Fellow of the American Solar Energy Society in 2021. And this year, he got the Leadership in Solar Architecture and Design Award. So I'll read the last few things. We'll let Orlo take over. He's a member of the American Solar Energy Society and an honorary fellow, the U.S. Green Building Council, the National Association of Home Builders, Rogers Chamber of Commerce, the Better Business Bureau, and ResNet. So with that being said, I would like to introduce Orlo and let him take over. So Orlo, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Yes, Ken, we've known each other for a long time. I've known Shauna. In fact, she was employed by our company until things got rocky in the recession of 2008 and 9. And but anyway, we have a lot of respect for all the homes she did in the Kansas City, both on the Kansas and Missouri side. And so I'm particularly pleased to reconnect with people that I've known for years. So thank you. Yeah, you mentioned that we've expanded our Stitt, Stitt Energy Systems, which it was originally. We think now that we should have called it Stitt Clean Energy Systems, and we probably still have the same name, but people would go to our website and say, oh, I don't want the utility company, and hang up or go check out on the internet or what. So we went to the Stitt group, and now with 4 divisions, we have Stitt Solar, we have Stitt Homes, we have Stitt Education, which I'm doing mostly of, and Stitt Components, where we sell insulating concrete forms and structural panels and solar systems that people want to contract with the electricians or their own labor themselves, and Icehouse roof, which we'll talk about. So I think maybe starting out, if we can share screen here, just an introduction and our logo, Stitt Education, which is the part that I'm doing. And so enough said about that. Today is the 27th, isn't it, Ken?
Yes, sir. 27th of August, 2022.
And I'm going to skip over that one. here's a copy of my book. It's in the 3rd edition, and we're probably going to do a 4th edition, although it gets harder and harder to get to priority focused and get things done. So I'd encourage the people viewing here to write your questions down. I typically do this in most of my presentations, and I have been blessed with the Stitt education part in lecturing guest lectures at universities, some of them like Arkansas and Pitt State in Kansas and Iowa State and Crowder College, which some of you probably know of. And so I'm pleased to be doing that. But write your questions down, and then I'll answer them later. Energy basics. To understand the Icehouse roof, and this is by no means a course in physics or all the ways that energy moves and changes, but we have to think about how to convert different energies to make them economical and practical and comfortable for ourselves. The ones that I'm particularly interested in talking about today, and particularly with the Icehouse roof, is light to heat and light to electricity. I could have put in there light to or wind to electricity. I could have put in there Cheerios to make us run or talk or whatever we do metabolically, but I decided to leave just those 2 in because this is the primary focus of Icehouse roof. Heat moves by combinations of conduction, convection, and radiation. I'm sure everybody here knows this, but I wanted to simplify it because to think about Icehouse roof requires that you think about all 3 of these bullets. Emissivity, dark colors absorb, light colors reflect relative to light and heat. We could also talk about how moisture or humidity moves and so forth from wet to dry to, but that's again not really relevant to the Icehouse roof, maybe a little bit. Hot air goes up. Most people know that. Heating and air people, interestingly, these days do not know that. And that is the sober truth, is they think the roof is going to leak and all the walls are going to leak. And so they just plan for it, and they don't realize that we can capture warm air high in the winter. We can condition the warmest air and get the highest efficiency through the return air or however the heating and air is arranged. I tell people in basics that rocks, when you throw them in the water, sink, and that foam, if you throw it in the same lake, floats. It's kind of like what water does. I mean, what air does. Icehouse roof, going back to the 1800s, probably even the 1700s, we found a thing, and unfortunately, I have not been able to re-find it, where Harvard College Agricultural Extension Service printed a similar drawing to this. And if you look at the diagram there, you can see how it's insulated with sawdust and wood shavings, hay, spent bark, or rock wool. Golly, that's a little different we do it today. And then there's inside, going up to the upper right, an ice chamber, a slanted floor. That's because no matter how well you insulate and create a ice house, it's going to melt. But remembering too that this all was being done so that you'd have ice in the summertime as well as the winter. And they would cut it off lakes in Massachusetts and Minnesota and Wisconsin, Michigan, wherever, and they would store it in this ice house. So the motivation for building an ice house that's really energy efficient was to keep it, the ice from melting, so they would have it ice for their ice boxes, not ice houses, but ice boxes. Some of you may have seen these in an antique store. And so the motivation was to somehow get bunches of ice into the ice house, keep it from melting. And it, lo and behold, as you see on the lower right, you can see the roof, and it's got a vent at the top and vents at the bottom, and it allows the hot air in the summer, particularly from the sunshine pounding down on top of it, to rise up and vent itself because hot air rises. It pulls it in from below, the sun heats it up on the roof, and it rises up, and it is their means of keeping ice before electrification from melting so that they could use it in their ice boxes. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? What a wonderful deal it is that we have all this electricity. So in my book, and this is actually an excerpt from the book, it shows the ice house installed. Shauna and Ken and Craig, you've all seen this, but the diagram, which I want to show you in a little more detail there, as we have it specified now, we have vents in the soffit. Air is in the vents and it rises up because of the heat in the roof, or from the roof and from the sun, and vents out on the ridge vent. The hotter the day, the faster it moves. It also allows people with the desire to have a black roof or a dark gray roof or a dark green roof, whatever dark is, because it gets hotter than white roofs. And but with the ice house roof, it doesn't matter. They can have whatever color roofing they want. The pink in there is blown foam. We can use open cell or we can use closed cell, because closed cell is required to control moisture and separation in direct contact with the roofing. But when we have the ice house roof, we find that the open cell foam works very well. And we haven't had any complaints over probably 20 years of doing it this way. It means we have a attic that doesn't have any insulation on the floor, 12, 14, 20 inches of insulation to climb around whenever you go up there, try to find electric wire or whatever. It's just an inconvenience, but you have a nice clean attic and there's no venting from the soffits into the attic, no venting from the gables. It's just a dead air space, which also adds to the insulation of the interior. Sometimes it's a vault, and that I'll show you a picture of in a minute. But the way that this works, and it works with any roofing, whether it's metal roofing or it does not work for flat roofs. And we have to turn to maybe solar powered vents or something to get the same benefit. Even low slope, 1 or 2 with metal roofs, it does not work well. It has to have the slope because hot air rises, again said. From the roof, you can see the ridge here. At the top of the picture, you can see that the hips in this particular case are vented too. And this requires drilling holes as appropriate, not to weaken the structure, but it allows that air to come through with the paddle bit. It's a bit of a chore, but it's worth it. And then the roofing that channels the ice house roof that channels up to the ridge vent is also functional and saves the same energy, best we can tell. A lot of people say, oh, you can't put ridge vents on the hip. And we say, no, with this product that we have, and I can give you specifications for it if you like. Lamanco makes it. It's their top of the line product. We have not had problems under normal circumstances with leaking, water leaking. Of course, in a tornado or high straight winds, things are going to leak. It's just going to happen. So now here's what it looks like with a vaulted ceiling, completely foamed, air sealed. This is the way Shauna's house is built. The idea is not only the Icehouse roof, but also to air seal the house. Then we have for health and for fresh air, we have energy recovery ventilators. We have a little bit different approach to it now than either Craig or Shauna know, but basically we have to provide fresh air into the house to provide a healthy environment for living. So that happens to be looking out to Beaver Lake. Beautiful windows, beautiful view. They have solar electric on this house. Here's a close-up around a skylight, operable electric skylight that opens with solar energy. And interestingly, the little, it looks like a cigarette or a whatever in his hand is not a cigarette. It's a smoke pencil or a smoke, what they call them. I got one right here. It's a smoke stick, we'll just call it, smoke pen. And we run a blower door test halfway through. At this point, after the foam is in, before the drywall's in, and we put a blower door operating at 25 pascals so that we can find the leaks and fix them. With a can of foam, with a caulk gun, maybe a return trip by the foam spraying company to fix it, because we found out actually on one of Shauna's jobs up north of Kansas City, that if you tell them it's going to be energy efficient, promise them, they came to you. The only reason they came to you was they wanted the most energy efficient house that could be built. And then all of a sudden, after you've built the house, closed it, finished it, trimmed it, painted it, wallpapered it, and then you run the final blower door test and it leaks. So we figured out that you have to have a midterm to be sure, if you make the promises, to be sure that the house is air sealed. And then we test it in different places, go all around the house. You can feel it in your face if it's bad. With the smoke pen, you can find the leaks and fix them. And now's the time to fix them, not later. Icehouse roof and savings, dollar savings. Based on studies by Oak Ridge National Laboratories, 46% summertime cooling savings. Based on our studies and comparisons, the Icehouse roof, as defined in the book and as above in the slide diagrams, including the radiant barrier and foam insulation, it saves 64%. And there are other savings like less AC installation tonnage required. Icehouse roof, if used widely, could result in coal and gas generation plants being shut down across the South. More ways or big ways that we can fight climate change. In some climates, the Icehouse roof allows for the use of mini split systems without ductwork. In our display home, which I'm going to show you, we use one mini split with a very simple return air and distribution down the stairs, and a 2-ton for 2276 square feet. Heats and cools, and the new Mitsubishi heat pump mini split goes down to -22 ambient temperature. Unbelievable. So the savings are real. I put this in because this is what I told a class earlier in the University of Arkansas. And Shauna and Craig know this. We used to sell our products and services by saying, yes, customer, an energy efficient home is more expensive, but it is the right thing to do. How many times have you said that, Shauna? Now we say building energy efficiently, including solar electric, is the most economical way to go. Then we explain the facts, details, and arithmetic of why the economics of going green will prove to be an incredible tax-free return on investment, or ROI. And we close by saying, and it is the right thing to do for the environment, for us, for our children and grandchildren, and to combat climate change. Really a mission statement there that college students and older people, retired people, anybody should be cognizant of as far as what can be done. A lot of people we find believe climate change is happening. They believe what the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change from the United Nations is saying, that we do have a deadline. They used to say it a few years ago, they were saying we have 12 years to avoid a point of no return. Now I just heard that moved it up to 8 years. That's kind of sobering. Everybody works better to a deadline. So let's get going. It starts with personal commitment. And this is the #1 chapter in my book. I just read a book, and I won't name the title or the author. They went through 225 pages, and they said, oh, and by the way, you need to make a commitment to solve the climate change. And I say, well, you don't pay attention to all those details of and suggestions or whatever, if you haven't made a commitment. Now, maybe you've made a commitment to read all that, but I can tell you at some point, everybody has to decide, I'm going to do something about this. I understand, and I don't know all the details, but I'm going to get going. So as I say, they're absolutely required to make things happen. Personal commitment, #1 chapter of my book. This is our display home. It was built originally as a passive solar demonstration home. It was built in 1978. We did a energy complete makeover energy-wise remodel, and we did a energy retrofit. We put solar electric on it. We took the solar water heating and solar space heating off. It still passes solar. We took out some interior walls and made one big great room for meetings, educational meetings. It is, as you can read in the sign on the left picture, Holistically Green Living Education Center. So we're now using it for company meetings, but also for gatherings of local people continuing education. So I'll show you a little bit more about that. Also, as probably all of you know, the National Solar Tour is coming up. In fact, if it's virtual, you can go live anytime. But if you want to go in person, then it's the last 2 days of October. So if you haven't put in a application in, then do so. You'll enjoy the publicity, and you'll be doing something good to spreading the word of what can be done with energy efficiency. A lot of people don't realize it. We try to teach it, but there are here and now, whether it's in housing or whether it's living or diet or whatever, there are solutions, tried and proven and economical, to what all can be done. It's just a matter of now doing it and helping other people understand what can be done, and that it's not, as in quotes, too expensive. This is the, I mentioned to Craig and to Ken earlier that we have 4 entries into the American Solar Energy Society National Tour of Homes, which I just mentioned. Last year, Shauna had one in there for a company that, for a customer that just sold their house. It's north of, near St. Joe, somewhere up there. I forget the little town. But I thought I'd show you the draft, the first round, which I think in itself is a piece of art. Anyway, the video drone operator did this, and I think you'll enjoy watching a few minutes of it. The entry we have as a energy planned national tour subdivision, not a house, not just one house, 19 houses total. We call it a walking tour. And so people, their spouse or their friends can walk the subdivision. It's 1 mile if they take the 2 cul-de-sacs. And all the houses in the subdivision are lined up to the sun, planned for energy efficiency. And now all the houses that we've done in the last 4 or 5 years are net zero. All the rest are net zero ready. You can see which way is south there, and you can see the orientation. And that's all being recorded by a drone. This is the north side of that house, and the south side. One of the problems with the drone is that we have a covenant to save the trees. And not only do drones get caught up in the trees, but they block the view from higher up, so you really can't see the layout of the subdivision. Is the volume okay on that?
Yeah. Oh, on the video?
Yeah.
No, we don't hear the video.
Okay. I'm not going to worry about it. It's music.
Yeah. I can barely hear it in the background.
Anyway, I think that covenants, we're saying, okay, every house, every building site does not have a perfect opportunity for passive solar, but practically everyone has some place if you plan the house so that you have a roof that will accommodate solar panels.
Especially in the summertime.
Yes. In the wintertime. And we're finding too, in the really well-built houses with the Icehouse roof, the challenge is in the winter more than in the summer. That's, you know, in Arkansas here, that's really unusual. This is our son's house, David. And he has a nearly flat roof. He did put in the Icehouse roof, but he has a very reflective roof too. And see all the trees there?
Yeah.
And this, the whole thing, the subdivision in a video taken in the late fall, when the leaves have fallen, shows the alignment of every house. Boat dock, people can have a slip. Now, I'm hesitant to do this next one, but it's really a good one. Okay, that happens to be a Chevy Bolt. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I'm going to click on that screen. Can you see that?
Yep.
Have you got audio?
Nope.
If you're a mechanic and you said, Mr. Mechanic, my car's getting really bad gas mileage and I don't know why. And he says, well, let me come out and look at your car. And he walks out in the parking lot and he goes, well, I know what's wrong with your car. You have square wheels. Your car isn't going very well because it's not very efficient. It has square wheels. And you say, well, what would I do to fix that? Well, we're going to put round wheels on your car instead of square wheels. Take your car from being very inefficient to very efficient immediately. It's low-hanging fruit. And so we talk to our customers all the time that too many homes in America are built with square wheels. They're improperly structured. And when I say improperly structured, they're structured or built or framed in such a way that the insulator cannot effectively insulate an air seal. When we go through our process of design and build, we design the structure so that it's properly framed, not only for the sake of the strength of the house, the insulation, indoor air quality, there's a variety of things that flow out of that. And if it's properly structured and framed, properly insulated, then we can go to your heating and air contractor and say, we need to put a much smaller heating and air system, or maybe we only put one heating and air system instead of three. And then the customer saves on the cost of the original equipment installation. They save on the maintenance of those other systems for years, and they save the energy. And we want to find the low-hanging fruit. We want to get rid of the square wheels so that when our customer moves into their house, they say, I have a house that just by its design and structure and all these little details, it simply just uses less energy.
We used to sell our products and services by saying to the prospective customer, yes, an energy efficient home is more expensive, but is the right thing to do. Now we can say building energy efficient homes, including solar electric, is the most economical thing to do. Then we explain the facts, details, and arithmetic of why the economics are going green, what the economics are of going green. And I might come off the slide here a little bit and say, if you had an investment that would take your utility bill from $250 to $17, because that's the overhead charge, and in so doing, you'd get a 26, or maybe now, and with the new legislation, 30% tax credit. You'd lock in on your utility bills forever, at least that part that you've replaced with solar, that you get a financing at no money down, no down payment, and equal to or nearly equal to your utility bill. So in effect, you swap out the utility bill for a solar loan. This means that anybody with a credit score of 600 or above can get a solar system, whether it's a very affordable house or a starter castle, whatever. So it will prove to be an incredible tax-free return on investment. And we close by saying, and it is the right thing to do for the environment, for us children and grandchildren, to combat climate change. So there are, I might go back. How much time do we have time here?
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. You said that you're doing mechanical ventilation differently now. I'd like to know a little more details about what you're doing with your mechanical ventilation. I'm interested.
Well, okay, that's a good question. We used to put an ERV, and all the vents for the ERVs were in the bathrooms or in the kitchen or in the laundry room. All the intake vents, and it would exchange air with a humidity adjustment in the heat HVAC, the unit itself, and it worked fairly well. But people, in many cases, weren't turning them on. The bathrooms were more humid. And so now we're putting in a smart bathroom vent, which senses motion, it senses humidity, and it vents externally, which puts a negative load, a minimal load of vacuum on the house, but it solves the people's problem that they're happy with their bathroom, they're happy with the vent, the mirror isn't fogging over. And then we put in a central unit as an ERV, and we put that usually on an on and off timer and a vacation mode and all that, so that it ventilates the whole house. But the whole house ventilator wasn't sufficient for customer satisfaction in bathrooms, particularly. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Panasonic makes the smart, they call it a smart green, I think they call it. And so any other questions?
You mentioned what your mini split that goes down to -22. What's it using for a refrigerant?
I couldn't tell you. Mitsubishi seems to have the market there. And some of the other like Heil and you know, name them all. They all seem to have mini splits now, but Mitsubishi has been in for, they were the leader in it and they're still the leader in it. I couldn't tell you what the Freon, what the refrigerant is.
And the
I have a
reason,
question on vaulted ceilings. Do you need to use the open or closed cell foam?
Well, with the Icehouse roof, we can use the open cell, but in cases where we have to spray onto the surface, right onto the roof, which is for us relatively rare, then we have to use the closed cell. Now, if we were doing a house in Minnesota or Northern Iowa or even Iowa, we would probably give second thought to using a closed cell, which is more expensive, but it's also a higher R factor. One of the things we're having with this whole concept of highly, highly energy efficient homes is that the heating and air people don't know what we're doing. Shauna and Craig probably realize this. They say, oh, we think you need 6 tons in this house. And we say, no, 6 tons, it'll run, but it won't dehumidify because the air handler only runs based on the temperature, and the temperature doesn't remove enough humidity. The other thing is that they think there has to be a ductwork and a return air from every room. And it really doesn't, because heat goes from warm to cooler. And when it's really well sealed and well insulated, as is Shauna's house, for example, you don't have the air leakage into every room and every crack, and every room becomes pretty well the same temperature. It's amazing. But building inspectors are turning us down. They tell us we're not doing it right. They tell us we need twice the tonnage and maybe even more. They're building them in now, 2276 square feet, 2 tons. And that's a little over 1,100 square feet per ton. And it's cool. Now we have a couple fans that blow it up or down, depending on which way we want, but it's comfortable. I'm sitting in that building right now. And it's maybe 80 degrees, 85 degrees, but when it was 103 and 4 here, we were comfortable. We were still comfortable, and we only run it during the day. We could run it all day and all night.
Did you have to get a design professional to sign off on that so the inspectors would accept it?
We now do a full manual
type.
J, manual D, and we put it with the plans for every home. But even with that, they think that we're not meeting it. It's a scam. It's, you know, if we weren't celebrating 44 years, we probably wouldn't have any clout. But we go back and tell them, look, this is the way it is. We've won national awards and so forth and so on. This is what's what. And finally, we do get a permit, but the hassle that we go through, and particularly when we go to someplace else where we haven't built a lot of houses.
Yeah. If a client came and they wanted to retrofit their house for an Icehouse roof, briefly describe what the process would be for them.
Challenge.
Challenge. Yeah.
For several reasons. Probably got 12 or 14 inches of insulation in the attic.
Right.
And it's on the floor of the attic. And to get to the soffits or underneath and get space to take a ventilation path up the rafters, it's probably stick framed. And I might say that stick framing doesn't work very well with Icehouse roof, mainly because of all the varieties of the way it's stick framed, and you just can't make everything fit very well and have a continuous path from soffit to ridge vent when it's stick framed. I sometimes say that some of the houses being built today and even built 20 years ago are like taking a piece of paper, wadding it up so you're about to throw it in the waste paper and saying, oh no, this is my roof system for the new house I'm designing. Yeah, being facetious. We have taken, for people that are willing to do it, one of these giant vacuums, which they use in the city for different reasons, including cleaning out sewers, and vacuumed all the insulation out so that somebody safely and with good good health practices can get under there without breathing asbestos, or not asbestos, but fiberglass or and suck it all out. And then you can get ice out down to the edge of the eaves, and then you have to put vents in the soffits.
Right. So you sell that cardboard product through Stitt?
With a radiant barrier on.
Yeah. So after they suck it all out, and they would go underneath and install that product, product underneath that, and install the soffit vents and the ridge vents, and then they go back and do spray foaming.
Yep. I don't know what it's like in Kansas City and the area, but I would say 3/4 of the houses that are being built here are still stick framed rather than with trusses. And to put Icehouse roof in a stick framed house, particularly with all the hips, is just, the builders throw their hands up and say, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The purlins and other structural members are just everywhere.
Yeah.
They're in the way of an Icehouse roof.
Exactly. It just, but trusses evenly spaced on 24-inch on center. It just works like it's pre-folded, and you just hammer staple it up with long staples. You got to have long staples, otherwise it pulls out with the changes in temperature.
So, okay, on a side note, tell me why David decided to build another house. Because the one house that he had there in South Sun, he decided to abandon that and do another one?
Well, I think it was, he likes to build houses for one thing. But we had some people that came, he retired early, evidently a family trust, and they made him an offer. He put it on Zello and got several stink bids. One couple gave a stink bid, but a little higher, and he turned them down. They came back again with a higher number. Meantime, they kept learning more and more about the house and about us. And pretty soon they gave him an offer that he just absolutely couldn't resist. So he built a new house mostly with cash. It was amazing. It's just,
Oh, nice, nice.
yeah. So, yeah. Other questions?
Orlo, what are you doing to promote Icehouse roofs nationally? Do you have any kind of PR program going on, marketing?
Well, that's an interesting question, Ken. We are not marketing it nationally. We should in some way do, but right now we have, in comparison where we were with Shauna and Craig here, we have 39 houses in the pipeline from design to completion. And it's hard for us, both capital-wise and personnel-wise, to do more than we're doing. We're also, the Stitt solar part of it is installing solar panels. We have 3 crews lined up. They're doing a house or a building. And we don't know what's going to happen with this new legislation, Build Back Better, but it's now, what do they call it?
Inflation?
Inflation.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation
Yeah.
Reduction Act.
That's it. Because we hear that the rates are going up and not-for-profit buildings like schools are going to get a check back for 30% of the solar system. And so it's a market where all of a sudden we can't even think about expanding to broader areas. However, in fact, I put a thing in to Carly Rexham, who Dave Roberts knows, and some of you others, that I would like to do a presentation at the 2023 ACES, which is in Boulder, about Icehouse roof. I'm also going to refine that subdivision plan and say, look, subdivisions, maybe we can't get all the houses lined up, but we can at least get a place for solar electric panels on the roof, and we can get a blower door test on every house in America. Arkansas is still following the 2009 IECC, believe it or not. 2009. So there's not much incentive and like the square wheels, people see this beautiful house. Oh my, it's wonderful. But it's not until they get their first utility bills that they realize it has square wheels.
Yeah.
And so it's a real challenge in the market. And I've been doing a session at ACES for the last 10 years on spirit and sustainability, maybe longer than that. A lady named Barbara Harwood is doing it before me. And people get discouraged. People with the best of intentions and the best of knowledge, and it includes me. I mean, I get to the point where I look forward, but there's hope when you realize that there are solutions, and they're economical solutions now. Just makes you feel like, let's keep going. And
the screen that's I'm looking at now in the upper left-hand corner, that is such a important phenomena, personal commitment that I'm interested in your book just to read that one chapter of personal commitment, because without that, the human race is going to lose without that understanding of the personal commitment.
Well, and that is the reason it's chapter 1. Ken, you're cognizant of the reality of the importance of what personal commitment and then behavior. It's personal commitment and behavior. Somebody has to commit and then do something in their own action, but it really talks about the reality of what climate change is doing. I'm sure you had at least as bad a weather. The temperatures 100 degrees for 15, 18 days here, or they're very close. And I've got a garden. I love to garden, and all of a sudden, I was watering it every day. Every day, because it would dry out in one day. And then I get a notice from our water company, please only water every 3rd day. Well, I say, am I going to violate their request? Yes, I did. Shame on me. But then I was just watering my garden, not my grass.
Yeah.
And then I thought, wow, if I couldn't water my crops, 100 acres of soybeans or corn or whatever, or water my livestock, what am I going to do? And a guy in Timothy Wirth, W-I-R-T-H, who was the Undersecretary of State during the Obama administration, gave a talk about this very thing, the United Nations and what other countries are doing and what we're doing. And then he stopped and he said, the real problem, and now we're realizing it, but he said 12 or so years ago, the real problem that we're going to experience is refugees. Refugees from Central America, from South America, from wherever. They're all moving somewhere because they can't feed themselves. They don't have what he referred to as Maslow's principles. You need security, you need water, you need food, you need some kind of shelter, or you're in trouble. And not only that, then he said, and those people will listen and then react to positively anybody that makes promises, whether they're true or false, lies or are true, that promises something good. They'll listen to them. And then we get into the political problems that a large percentage of the world is saying, no, there's no climate change problem. So we have our work cut out for us and for those people like ourselves. The good news is we have legislation now, essentially $400 billion, 40% of $1 trillion, that's going to motivate people and get things done. So anyway, I elaborated on that perhaps beyond what you were asking, Ken.
That's fine. I guess the other question I have is the Icehouse roof, the pieces. I don't know if you have a name for the pieces or not that you use that you staple in place. Do they have a name exactly?
We just call it Icehouse roofing. It comes in pallets, and it's folded to fit between trusses on 24-inch centers.
So if it did sell, if people were to pick up the idea, you can ramp up production. That's my only other question. Is that something you can make more of?
Oh, yes, that's not a problem. We can go national with that. The problem with going national is a lot of the builders don't want to use trusses.
Gotcha.
And a lot of builders, even though we have proven it and shown it over and over, don't want to put fence on hips.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And a lot of the houses today are nothing but hips.
Yeah.
Any other questions? The book is for sale on the last page, which is up now. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes.
Yes.
It's on the website, the Holistically Green Living website, and the Stitt Group under stittgroup.book. And we have a thumb drive, which puts it in the exact same quality and order on a thumb drive, half the price. And the nice thing about the thumb drive book is you can click on all the links.
Yeah, great.
I think Chet McLaughlin had a question. I saw him raise his hand there. You have a question, Chet? You need to unmute. Click on your microphone, bottom left of your corner, bottom left of your screen,
Or you can hold your space bar down, Chad.
or hold your space bar down.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, two issues. First of all, I'm a master gardener and we're having real problems with gardens drying out. And if you will get some sunscreen for your garden, I know it sounds silly, but it will allow you to go to that water every third day.
That's good suggestion. I appreciate that.
Yeah. The other, I just wanted to comment that I've got a 1-ton air conditioner in a 2,000 square foot house with Icehouse roof. And it's a pretty tight house and the 1-ton does us just fine.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yes.
I used to have to argue with my contractors and say, no, 1 ton less than what you're talking about.
At least, yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Yep. And the economics and the things that are happening should drive it, should drive change. The motivation now is to spread the periods when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow,
Yeah.
so that we can shut down more fossil fuel generation plants.
One more question. Have you ever talked to Habitat about getting Icehouse roofs as part of their standard design procedures?
We have, and we have done here in Northwest Arkansas examples and shown them. We've even donated solar panels, and with great appreciation. I don't know recently what's happened, but that brings up, I need to write that down to contact them again. We have a wall full of awards that the local Northwest Arkansas Habitat group has given to us in appreciation for ICS, insulating concrete forms, which the owners and the volunteers can put down and then pour the slab to the back wall of the ICS, and then Icehouse roof, and now with the solar. One of the things that we're working on for the future, the challenge is that the people that are in a broad sense for climate change and carbon is, there are two things. Concrete, the manufacture of cement to make concrete, is highly, highly carbon intensive, and the same way with steel. And so here we have highways, we have sidewalks, we have houses, we have tall buildings. We're working on houses that will have very little steel, no steel, using laminated beams or some other structure, and then some replacement for the concrete and the foundations.
Well, doesn't concrete absorb CO2 over its lifetime? So it's basically a CO2 zero?
I couldn't tell you any statistical, but I know that when you take limestone and you cook off those molecules of water that are attached to limestone to make cement, they have a kiln that's 500 feet long and 20 feet in diameter and fired with usually natural gas. And out comes the clinkers, and then they grind them up into fine powder, which is what we think of as the cement, and then they mix that with water. I don't know that it absorbs, but probably maybe some, but it's a major use of fossil fuels that end up as carbon dioxide.
So if they used hydrogen, it'd reduce the CO2 effect.
Yes, and there is some movement. There is some movement to use solar electricity to make hydrogen. The hydrolysis of water into hydrogen and oxygen, and capturing that, which then can be used somewhat like propane and used for cars as fuel cells or as cement plants. And the temperature, when hydrogen is burned under the right conditions, it can be extremely hot. So then concrete and steel can be managed with a product that ends up with the water as its residue.
There's a new process the French have come up with for using concentrated solar to heat it up and produce, it's a lower grade cement, but it works.
I'd be interested to know more about that.
There was an article in The Economist about it, been about a year ago. And I haven't heard any more about it, but they were talking about it. I don't know anything about the economics.
I don't either. At the University of Arkansas built a dormitory. They use piers instead of footings, and cut the amount of concrete in half. And then everything is above, everything that's above the ground, above grade, is laminated timbers. And it's 7 stories high, elevator, very little concrete or steel in the building.
Well, Orlo, we will get this online ASAP, and in the process, we'll edit out our techie issues so that it'll go a little smoother. But I want to congratulate you on a career that is so unique that you have been able to survive despite the odds and despite the challenges. And you've just done a marvelous job with your career.
Well, thank you. Those are nice words said, and I appreciate it. And I go back to my own experiences that it was commitment. And for those people who might not know, I was two classes short, about 8 or 9 hours at Iowa State in chemical engineering. I had some time to take some electives, and I took a course, what they called environmental biology. And the professor was just outstanding, and he talked about all the pollution, including the burning of gasoline and fossil fuels, and all that stuff at some point is going to cause us problems. And sure enough, he was right. That was 1963. I'm dating myself, but I got to thinking about that. And then that summer, as a requirement to graduate, you were required to take a chemical engineering field trip to St. Louis, where we went through a refinery and Purina and Monsanto and cement plant and so forth. And and Anheuser-Busch, we went there too. Yeah, that was the last on the tour for good reasons. And I realized that my heart wasn't in a refinery or a whatever.
Yeah.
I changed curriculums, extended another term, graduated actually in biology or botany, the whole ecology. It wasn't called ecology then, even at Iowa State, it was botany. So I graduated in botany, but that was what really was a changing point. And it was a commitment that you just, and I guess it goes back to how you're raised or what you believe in and what you see as, but it was also, like you said, Chet, you enjoy gardening, and I couldn't see myself raising whatever, So thank you for those kind words, and I appreciate it. And I commend you for continuing on with the chapter of the American Solar Energy Society. Going back, I think the American Solar Energy Society, when it goes back to the very basics, all the way back to 1954, when they, in cooperation with the Bell Laboratories, started doing solar promotions all the way through going to the moon and all the way through today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
ACES is, and Carly Rexham, who's the executive director, and their board is just quality people all the way. Isn't that right, Dave? Dave Roberts, are you there?
He's gone.
He's there.
No, he's
Oh,
not.
I'm just muted. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
you did
I enjoy sharing.
Great.
I answered the questions on the Icehouse roof.
Yes.
Yep. Mike says to tell you hi, Orlo.
Oh, good.
He's in the other room yelling. Tell him hi.
Yeah, good. We'll tell him, give him my regards too. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much for doing this. It was very nice of you. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right.
All right.
Email me questions if you have them.
Will do.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a
all.
good rest of your day.
Yep. Have a good weekend.